you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Let's look at our lady flub. Let's see if we can hit that again there. Oh, she's just not going to come in at all. So there you go. Well, welcome to the big show. As always, folks, we'll have some editing to do on that. Thanks for tuning in. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you but doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as the rest of your family. Let's hit it one more time. Man, it just doesn't want to go. They're having a hard time there. It's your streamer. Anyway, guys, welcome to the big show. As always, we've got people that bring you their stories, their journeys, their lessons, things that will lighten your life, brighten your mind, and make your life better. And, of course, you're going to learn some stuff. That's what we're all about here on the Chris Voss Show for 16 years and 2,400 episodes. The learning, if I can learn to say it. Today, we have an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking to her about her book, some of the things you may want to know about that's going on in the halls of academia and medicine. As always, be careful what you put in your bodies, folks. Of course, I've seen some of you at McDonald's, so be better. Anyway, because I was probably there too anyway. She is the author of the book Cover Up: Collusion in the Halls of Academia, out June 3rd, 2021. Dr. Helene Z. Hill, Ph.D., is on the show with us today. We're going to get into her book and all the good stuff there. Helena, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm okay.
Thank you. I'm just making all the editing I can to do post-show. So give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the interwebs?
www.helenezhill.com.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview. What's in your book?
What's in my book? Well, first of all, I have to say that I didn't write this book. I provided the information about the book, but it was written by Amy Yarzinski, and she did a wonderful job. She's not a scientist herself, but she took all the information that I gave her and she wrote it up, and you wouldn't know that it wasn't written by a scientist.
So she was your co-author then.
I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
The way I've said it on the cover is that it's, what did I say?
Mm-hmm.
Helena Z. Hill,
Mm-hmm.
as told to Amy Yarzinski.
There you go. So give us some deeper details on what the book is about.
Well, it's about fraud that I observed in the laboratory that I was working in, that was perpetrated by a younger researcher, and I reported him, and I tried to get him removed, I guess you could say, and I failed because nobody wanted to believe me, and I'm very stubborn. And so the first thing that I did was I reported it to my department chairman and also to the head of the laboratory. And then we had to go to a committee, which is called the Campus Committee on Research Integrity. I'm not sure that's a good name for it. I think it's a Campus Committee on Research. Bit of irony there,
maybe.
but anyway, so then they held a number of sessions, and they interviewed the people involved, with myself, the guy who was the head of the laboratory, and then the guy that I believed had fabricated the results of his experiments. And we were interviewed one at a time, and they didn't believe me. They believed the boss, and they believed the researcher, And there was another fellow who actually was the one who reported to me the experiments that he thought were being defrauded. And I felt that he was absolutely right. And I still believe that he is. So this committee met several times, and I have all the notes from that committee, so I know what was said. And it's pretty obvious that they didn't like the fellow who reported to me, and they didn't like me.
Oh, wow.
So I would say that there's a fair amount of prejudice there. But in any case, when they finished up and made their decision, they ruled against my findings.
Wow.
And so I actually I went to the Office of Research Integrity at the NIH, which is the office that investigates scientific fraud. And it took about a year, and I worked with a woman who was a scientist herself, but had turned into a member of that committee. And she was very thorough, and she supported me, and she believed that there had been fraud, and she reported that to her committee at the end of the year, and they didn't support her, and so they said they ruled against her. But I learned some more information about data that had been fabricated, and she suggested that I go back and file a new report to the committee, which I did. Went through the same thing again. They didn't believe me. And actually, her boss, the committee talked to him, and her boss actually insinuated that I was lying. And I wasn't. I don't lie. So the second committee, the government committee ruled against me. The second committee ruled against me. And I don't remember exactly how we went. I decided to file a case to the federal government. It's called a quitam, Quitam, and a quitam is I am considered to be a relator. I'm reporting the fraud, and I'm stating that the government has been defrauded because the grant that was that these people were working on came from the federal government.
Okay.
So that took a very long time.
And you detail all that in the book.
Yeah, I told that. That's told in the book.
Okay.
Right. The book really focuses mostly on the reports from the various people. I had to choose witnesses, and the book really focuses on the questions and answers of the witnesses.
Okay.
There's a lot of that.
All right. So lay me a foundation so that people can understand what the importance of this book is for them to read it and hear your story. Give me some more details of what you were doing, what you were working on, why it's important that there isn't fraud happening, and what does that mean to consumers or people that you want to read your book?
Okay. We were in a radiology department. Radiology is responsible for X-rays of people, and also of radiation that's used. People get injected with radiation. It's called nuclear medicine, and they may use the radiation as a tracer to find things inside of people and so forth. And so it's a very important aspect of patient care. And I didn't know you were going to ask me these questions. I retired 8 years ago.
Okay.
So, and I'm 96 years old, and I also
You're
suffer from memory
96?
loss.
What? Are you really 96? Is that what you said?
I'm really 96.
You're holding up well.
Ask my husband. He knows.
There you
He's
go.
younger than I am.
You're a cradle
But
robber there, eh?
anyway, in nuclear medicine is involved in smoking out tumors and things like that using radiation. It's not involved in radiation treatment. It's involved in radiation studies of the human body.
How long were you studying that sort of stuff, or in that field?
Say that again?
How long were you in that field?
Oh, I was in that field for many years. I got my Ph.D. in 1964. I worked in medical genetics for a while, but I actually started being a radiation person in about 1972. And from then on, for 60 years, I was in radiation.
Now, so what impact does it have to consumers for the story you're sharing here? Do they need to be concerned about, what they're being exposed to if there's fraud? Was it mostly a government sort of fraud to get more money for research? Or tell us about how that plays out and why you're interested.
I would say that the person who wrote the grant application, his goal was to get money to do research from the federal government.
So ripping off basically government and taxpayers, maybe.
What nuclear medicine is all about is that it uses radiation to study what's going on inside a person's body. Are there tumors there? Are there other abnormalities there, and that sort of thing? And you want to be sure that you're not using too much radiation, because that's not good for people. Radiation is basically dangerous. And also you want to be sure that you're not using too little radiation, because you wouldn't be able to find the things that might be damaging to the human body that you're studying. So it's important to have the right dose. And these experiments were really designed to study that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's important to consumers because they want to have accurate science, accurate testing. No one wants to get an overdose of radiation that could be, cause some harm in the long run. And that's never a good thing. Last time I checked, I try not to hang out at Chernobyl. That's kind of one of my rules. I don't eat off the ground there either. So you tell the story, and it's an interesting thing. And I think would this be part of the whistleblower cause or clause that's in, we have like a whistleblower thing for our government, or is it more it was embodied in the college or university you're working at, I guess, that was.
I am definitely a whistleblower. And the government was involved because I was accusing the people in this laboratory of defrauding the government.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. So do you feel there was a cover up because they wanted to discredit you because they felt like, they want more money, right?
Well, of course they want to keep getting grants from the government. And of course they want to cover it up because they don't want people to know that they're being cheated. Yeah.
And that's kind of wild there.
Also, they want to get results. One thing that in medical schools and science studies and so forth, you have to produce papers in order to get ahead. So you have to write scientific papers, and they have to be reasonable and well presented and so forth. Basically what we are as scientists is we're paper producers. And the more papers you have, you are credited with it kind of makes you seem like you're a better scientist because you've got a lot of papers.
Yeah.
doesn't, they don't, a lot of times people don't even look at what the papers are about. It's just that, oh, you have a stack of papers. That's wonderful. So you must be really good.
I have a stack of papers in the back, but they're just blank papers for the printer. Does that count?
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm really smart, evidently. There you go.
We'll hire you.
So, sometimes being a whistleblower in government, we've seen this in movies, portrayed in movies, dramatized, if you will. But it can be kind of dangerous because you're putting your job on the line, you're putting your credibility on the line.
Well, I have tenure. So my job wasn't really online, although the dean of the medical school at one point actually threatened to fire me, which he could not do. But it was a very nasty thing for him to write and tell me that that if I didn't desist, that I would be fired.
That's a threat,
It was definitely a threat.
It's definitely a threat and intimidation of a witness or intimidation of a whistleblower, really, when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm familiar with
a copy of that letter. I've saved it. Don't worry.
So did in the book, did you get anything resolved, or is it still an open case that's still pending or working, or you're trying some different avenues? It sounds like
it's finished.
It's finished.
And it's finished because it went to the I had a wonderful lawyer who was really, this was not his field. He wasn't a radiation biologist, but he learned so much about radiation and he spoke so well. But when the case finally went to the judge, it didn't go to a jury or anything like that. It just went to the judge. The judge ruled that the principal investigator didn't know at the time that he wrote the grant application that the data was false. And so since he didn't know, he wasn't ruled to be to have done anything wrong. Now that seems kind of weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He was going to know later on, but he didn't know at the time that he submitted his grant application. So, okay, you get the grant, and he got the grant. And actually, it could have all been straightened out. The National Institutes of Health people could have told him to try again, do the experiments over again, and that sort of thing. But it never came to that.
Wow.
Because the head of the lab never really owned up to the fact that he knew that the data had been fabricated.
Isn't that wild? That is wild. And, this is important. We don't need fraud and different things in our research because, I don't want to get the wrong thing and have it, give me issues health-wise or kill me or maim me or anything else, I already do enough of that on my own at McDonald's, as I joked about earlier.
There's an organization called Retraction Watch, and they are always looking for scientific fraud.
Are they really?
Yeah, right.
That's good to know.
And they do a very good job of that, actually. So, and they've been going now for maybe 20, 25 years, something like that. And over the years, they've accumulated the data on scientific fraud, and probably what would you say, George? Maybe 5-10% of data that's published isn't true.
Wow. Now we see a lot of these studies, and it seems like there's a study for everything now. And we hear sometimes that some of these studies are paid for by the organizations that are looking for data to use as like why cigarettes are good for you, and it's paid for by Philip Morris. And you're like, wait, this seems really, and they get this researcher back that like sometimes, smoking is good for curing cancer. I mean, in the long run, it does kind of cure cancer if you die.
Never heard that.
Well, there were some of those ads that were going on in the 60s and 70s where it's like, doctors approve Camel cigarettes for smoking. and there's a doctor sitting there holding the thing, and so like I think there was some sugar lobbies that did some cheating that way. They hire data and researchers to, sugar is good for you. Snort it today, that sort of thing. So, it's important that we get accurate data, and of course our taxpayer dollars, we all contribute to that. So we want those used properly to fund us and stuff like that. But 10%, that's pretty huge. How much would you estimate that is a monetization of fraud out of all the funding that goes on for this sort of thing?
Well, if I think 10% is a little high. It's more like 7 or 8%, something
Really?
like that. But as far as funding is concerned, funding is it's the money is coming. A lot of it is coming from the government, and so the government is being defrauded.
Yeah. In your book, do you put forth any steps that maybe governments or colleges or universities or anybody who's involved in these studies can improve on, or maybe, I don't know, maybe we need more investigators or something like that? Did you put anything in your book that gives people maybe a roadmap to move forward and avoid or eliminate fraud?
What I have suggested is, let me see if I can say it. That I have to think. I think that people cheat because they want to get ahead. They need to get research grants.
Yeah.
And you apply to the NIH for research grants, and very few of them are going to succeed. So principal investigators are breaking their backs trying to get their research funded, and they, because the competition is so great, they don't succeed. As a result of that kind of encourages people to cheat. And I think that what I think we could do to ameliorate that is to make sure that everybody who wants to do research ought to have some funds in order to do it. Now, if you're going to be big time and have a big lab and all that sort of thing, then you're going to get more money. But it shouldn't be that of the people who are applying for research grants, so few of them are funded.
I might mention the irony that the result has been confirmed, even though the experiments were faked. In fact, if they had done the experiments correctly, they would have found the correct answer.
Absolutely. In my book that hasn't come out yet, called The Crying Window, I actually found the experiment that shows that the guy was right, even though he had been making up the data.
Really? So the guy you turned in,
one experiment that did it right.
So the guy you turned in had been doing it right, and the data was right, even though he was cheating? Is that
It was really
right?
basically his boss was involved in the experiment with the guy who wound up doing the cheating. And it was the first experiment that they did with this particular radioactive compound, and the experiment was done right. The boss didn't like the way the setup was, and so he had his postdoctoral fellow change it. And when he changed it, the guy started making up the data.
Wow.
And I speculate that. I mean, I have no proof. Well, I mean, I could show you that, but I could show you that the data is not right, and my explanation of that would be that he made it up.
What did the
we have numbers that are involved here, and you analyze the numbers, and you can see that the numbers are impossible.
Mm. So they just logically they're beyond the pale, I guess.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: how, you want to we want people to buy the book so they read the book and hear your adventure. What do you hope people learn from what you went through?
Well, I hope that they'll learn that we need to change the way scientific research is financed by the government, and that we ought to have money we ought to have more money so that more people can get funding, and maybe those more people are not going to get as much as they might like, but at least they should, everybody, or not everybody, but most everybody should have access to some research funds, so they don't have to split their sides trying to write grant applications and then finding that only 15% of them are going to be funded, and they're in the 85% that are not funded. So they have to go back to the drawing board, write it again, keep splitting their sides to get money. And it's very frustrating. It's boring. It's frustrating. It's hard.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a hard business, and therefore, maybe the inclination to cut corners or cheat. Now, you mentioned your next book that's coming out. Tell us about that book. Does it have a title yet?
Oh, it's called The Crying Window.
Okay, The Crime Window?
Yeah, it's really an autobiography. It's called The Crying Window because when I got my first scientific job, and my husband had his, we moved to we were hired by the University of Colorado Medical School, and I was in the biophysics and genetics department, and my husband he's a surgeon, so he was in the Department of Surgery. And when I would ride my bicycle to work, and we had two little daughters. The youngest was about 3 years old, and the house was a beautiful house that we had bought, and there was a windowsill, and she would stand on the windowsill, and she would stand and look out the window, and I would ride my bicycle past the window as I went to work, and she would cry and cry and cry and say, "You didn't kiss me goodbye. You didn't kiss me goodbye." And of course I had. And one day she got so angry that she kicked the window and she broke it.
Oh.
And the glass went all over the driveway. And so to me, that was a metaphor for the rest of my life.
Yeah, there you go. So, so you find that the truth is important to you and that it has value, and it's probably very important in the scientific community. And telling your story, I mean, did the government believe you? I mean, the government had to step in somewhere here, right?
Well, the government, what's the government? It's not, fortunately, we didn't have Donald Trump in those days, but the government is a huge entity. And the person that the Office of Research Integrity was responsible for investigating my charges. And I had a woman who had been a very good scientist herself, and she was now one of the investigators at the Office of Research Integrity. And she spent a year interviewing me, going over data and so forth, and she believed that I was right. And at the end of the year, she presented all of the information to her committee, and and her boss said no, didn't believe her. And so she had written a report, and I have a copy of that report, in which she stated that she believed that I was right and that the university should go back and examine things. And her boss denied that, and so the case was closed. So that was the end of it with the Office of Research Integrity as far as my charges were concerned.
Wow. Well, there you go. But now you're out telling your story and getting people familiar with your stuff. It sounds like you had quite a thing there. How many years did this take that you were going on with this back and forth and kind of feeling a little bit maybe in limbo?
I made the first charges of scientific fraud in 2000, and the case finally closed, I think, in 2012. So it took 12 years.
Wow, 12 years of your life. And, I'm sure that, it's not cool, the people are second guessing you and you're trying to prove your ideas and everything and other stuff. Yeah.
I think people looked at me. I don't think I had I know I didn't have very many friends.
Now, you talked a little bit about you didn't know how to fight. You were ashamed for being a whistleblower. Talk to us about what that feeling is like, going through that compression zone of you're putting yourself out there. It's not it's not all fun and games, and there's a lot probably that potentially you could have as a downside.
As the case developed, once I went to the courts and filed my case for qui tam, then we got all of the data from the laboratory, and we could analyze that. And I had a statistician who was an expert witness for me, and I also had a radiation biologist who was an expert witness for me. And both of them went over the data very carefully and agreed with my findings. So I had just the support from them, and we didn't lose because of their testimony. What we lost because the judge said that the principal investigator did not know that the data had been fabricated when he filed the grant application. Now, does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't think that makes sense.
But like, why would that matter if it's, it's like saying, well, you didn't rob a house if you came through the front door or something. I don't know. Just kicking around stuff, but yeah, it's that doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all. But that's the way the law is written, the law that qui tam comes out of, and then we appealed, and my lawyer spoke very eloquently in favor of the appeal. And again, it was the same thing. And as a matter of fact, in the appeals court, there were 3 judges, and the kind of the lead judge was a woman. And as a matter of fact, her background was very similar to mine. She grew up in Philadelphia, as I did, and she and I were about 3 years apart in age and so forth, which I thought was kind of interesting. And the first thing that she said was, I don't know what's going on here. I never took a science course in my life. Well, what's she doing? Judging science. That's the way the courts are.
That's true. And I don't know that judges are scientists most times. I don't know, but there you go. So
I would argue, and that's one of the things that I really think is important, that scientists should be judging scientists.
Yeah.
And that I should never have had to go to the federal courts in order to run this case. I should have had a scientific body that I could have gone to. Would have had radiation biologists, people who knew radiation and what it was all about. Should have been the judges. And that's not the way it's set up now.
That's just wild. It's I know that scientists do what is that called? Peer review, where they do a peer review on it.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. And I know that's some things, but I think those are not necessarily to root out fraud. I don't know. Is there anything like that to root out fraud in a peer review? Maybe that's what
I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, the Campus Committee on Research Integrity at the New Jersey Medical School where all this was going on. That could be your like peer review, but that committee that was looking at my charges was not a peer review committee. It was mostly administrators. It was no one who knew anything about radiation. And there were only two scientists on the committee. One was the chairman, and I believe, I don't have any firm evidence of this, but I believe that she was very friendly with the head of the laboratory. So
it would seem that there is a bit of conflict of interest there, right?
Absolutely.
Because the administrators at the college, or who are interested in getting more money in the door, are like sitting there going, whatever. I mean, it seems like that would definitely be a conflict of interest.
And then another member of the committee was a microbiologist. My Ph.D. is really in microbiology.
Wow.
And I think he didn't like me. It's kind of a weird.
Maybe he was up to something too. You never know. He was like, she turns in guys who are doing fraud. So
I think I lost because she's just a fussy old woman who's
Quixotic. Remember what the judge said?
Yeah. Quixotic. Quixotic. The judge said that I was quixotic.
Really?
Yes.
That's
right.
Kind of rude.
Don Quixote.
Don Quixote. Oh, that you were on a mission to. Chase. Tilting
with windmills, right?
Tilting with windmills. That sounds like something I've heard around these days. So as we go out, give people your final thoughts on pickingupthebook.coms, where they can go to find out more, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I hope people will read the book. I hope people will read The Crying Window, and also my first book, which is really for scientists. It's called Hidden Data. I see it's backwards when I'm looking at it. But, the subtitle is called The Blind Eye of Science.
Oh, and what is that about?
So this is the data. There are so it's not for the normal reader.
Oh, okay.
It's
more
for
of
scientists.
Hey, you might learn
and
something.
it's an analysis of 8 experiments that were done in the laboratory, which all have some fraud in the end, and also the NIH application for the grant. Huge amount of fraud.
That's wild.
Making up numbers. Just making up numbers.
Making up numbers. That's what we do on the Chris Voss Show. We make up numbers too. We just make up numbers. I don't know. I started that joke line thinking I could follow through and something would come to me, and it just didn't. So I'm stuck. So
I thought you were going to say musical numbers.
Yeah, musical numbers. There you go. I just needed some help from you. The musical numbers. I don't know. We do that. There's a musical number at the beginning of the show. Does that count? Anyway, that joke fell flat. As hard as it could be. So give us your .com so we go out. When is the launch of the new book too, if you would please?
I think it's going to come out this summer.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll watch for it. And what was the .com one more time?
www.helenazhill.com.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Helena, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you for interviewing me. I really appreciate having the chance to talk about all of this. And
there you go.
I hope people will listen and worry about keeping science honest.
There you go. The more you know.
Most scientists are honest.
There you go.
And some are not.
Well, thank you for being brave, standing up, telling your story, and holding up ethics and morals and trust and honesty. We need more of that in this world. Thank you very much, Helena.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. And thanks, Ron, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss and all the places on the internet where you are. Order the book wherever fine books are sold and watch for her future upcoming book. It's called Cover Up: Collusion in the Halls of Academia, out June 3rd, 2021. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to facebook.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next